Good morning, everyone. We are live, and what a wonderful opportunity to welcome you to our virtual information session. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to join us this morning. I am Kobus, the Dean of Milpark Business School, and joining me as the facilitators of this session is Jamela and Stanton. They are both senior lecturers, and of course, our esteemed alumni, Kagiso and Brandon, who you'll meet a little bit later. But colleagues, let me get the conversation going by giving you a snapshot of who we are and what we stand for. So, Milpark Business School has been around for more than 20 years with a national footprint in South Africa, and may I add, extending even into the continent, and we also have students in other parts of the world. So, the offerings that we have as a business school, starting with a Doctor of Business Administration, the DBA, of course, the MBA, and then we have 4 postgraduate diplomas, of which 2 are being featured today, the Postgraduate Diploma in Investment Management and the Postgraduate Diploma in Banking. The other 2 being a Postgraduate Diploma in Business Administration and a Postgraduate Diploma in Public Administration. Now, in addition to that, as any business school worth its salt, we also have executive education, short courses, and of course, finally, also consulting. Now, college, we believe we provide quality scholarship in response to the changing world of work, and that we are a key contributor to ethical and sustainable business practices informed by the Sustainable Development Goals, or as we commonly refer to them, the SDGs. I think fundamentally, we literally give wings to your career progression and your career ambitions. So our reason for being is, and what we get up for in the mornings, is to develop ethical leaders for the common good. Now that's a very broad stroke type of a reason for being, but that which weave into all our qualifications and our offerings that we do have. And this mission is firmly rooted in our values of integrity, respect, excellence, and innovation. So colleagues, in sum, ethical and sustainable business practices are really at the heart of our teaching and our research philosophy. So therefore, we empower future leaders and current leaders to pursue ethical and sustainable business practices informed by the SDGs. Now, that also very similarly apply as much to the world of the investment management fraternity, or the banking and the financial services. So, just to add on to this reason for being, it's built on the Greek term called phronesis, or directly translated means practical wisdom, which emphasizes not only the development of great leaders or great business leaders, but leadership for the common good. And we are really very proud of our students' achievements in a wide variety of sectors, and believe it reflects the impact we make as a business school. And of course, I have to mention this, opportunity to brag. We're also very proud of being the only business school on the African continent with amber accreditation for our online MBA. Now, we believe our curricula across all our programs is contemporary and it's relevant, and our facilitators have hands-on industry experience. They come from the trenches, so to speak. And we endeavor to create a learning environment that promotes growth-producing experiences for our students that impacts all 3 modes of learning, namely cognitively, emotionally, and physically. Now, by physically, we don't mean, physical labor necessarily, but it's immersive, to get as close to the real life scenario as possible in this process of learning. The Romans taught their children that nothing could be learned whilst sitting down. Think on that one for a moment. And of course, the students are the focus in our teaching and learning transaction. So colleagues, that in a snapshot, and I really trust you will find this session informative and inspirational. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Jamela and Stanton. Jamela and Stanton, looking forward to the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Oosthuizen, for that wonderful introduction to Milpark Business School and those wise words. And I will pick up on the discussion around the curriculum and also the programs that we have at Milpark Business School, focusing on the postgraduate diploma in investment management and banking. And I'll just like to share a few slides with you. In terms of the program that I spoke about, I will start with the postgraduate diploma in investment management and just sharing a little bit on the curriculum, what we offer, as well as the different courses. Just give me a minute. Okay. I see that I'm not able to share my slides, but while the technical team assists us with the sharing, I'll just speak a little bit about the postgraduate diploma in investment management, which is what we're discussing this morning. And the PGDIM is a really unique program that focuses on very practical investment skills and analysis. It's designed for individuals and professionals wanting to deepen their knowledge and understanding of financial markets, focusing on financial instruments like equities, fixed income, derivative investments. But there's also a big focus on portfolio management as a principle of investment management. Dr. Oosthuizen mentioned that at Milpark Business School, we have a big focus on ethical leadership. And ethics is the foundation of everything that we do. And similarly, in this course, there is a big focus on ethics and looking at the ethical trends globally, especially within financial services and within investment management. You will know that CFA Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Practice are one of the sort of the leaders in terms of global investment ethics. And because of that, in our program, we like to benchmark ourselves against what's happening globally in order to remain relevant to the ethical dynamics within investments. Now, just generally in terms of the courses in the postgraduate diploma in investment management, we have 7 courses that we focus on. 5 of the courses are compulsory and they cover investment ethics, code of ethics, that's the one course. We also have a course on equity and fixed income instruments. We have a course on alternative investments and derivatives. And these two, the equity and the alternative investments and derivatives, are very practical, rigorous courses that actually focus on the detail of valuing financial instruments and financial investments. So they're quite practical courses. And then we also have a course on financial analysis and corporate finance. It's a course that looks at corporate finance, the valuing of investments, the valuing of businesses, mergers and acquisitions. And then we have 2 elective courses. And the 2 elective courses are designed to expose students to research within financial services, but also research broadly. Because what we find is that a lot of our students who do the postgraduate diplomas move on to do the MBA, and some of them actually move on after the MBA, they move on to do the DBA. So what we do in the research method is to expose students to research methodologies, to doing research, and in that way expose them to, or prepare them rather, to doing a higher qualification like an MBA. The other course that is quite interesting, I mentioned the 2 electives, being the research methods. We also have another course called the Economics and Statistics Project. And the idea here, coming back to what Dr. Oosthuizen was saying about being relevant to current business problems, and to immerse our students in business problems. We like to expose students to what is being done in practice currently within investment management and within financial services. So the idea behind this course, which is called the Economics and Statistics Project, is to expose students to an investment project which is related to investment management and also financial statement analysis. So with that, it just gives you a bit of an idea of what the postgraduate diploma in investment management is all about. So I would like now to introduce an alumni, one of our students who has done the PGDIM, because I would like him to share with you about the program in terms from a curriculum point of view, but also about his journey, what he has learned during the time when he did the PGDIM, also to share a little bit about the kind of support that he received from Milpark Business School during that time, and also how that program has aided him in his career ambitions and how it has helped him to further his career ambitions. So with that, I would like to introduce Kagiso. Kagiso, are you with us? Welcome to the information session. Hi, Kagiso. Okay, I see Kagiso's mic is acting up, but I'll just give him a few minutes to join us. Kagiso works for ABSA. So he works for one of the prominent banks in South Africa, and he did his PGDIM, I think a year or two ago. And he has over 10 years experience of working in banking, and he's currently pursuing a master's degree. And I hope that he will share a little bit with us this morning about his current studies, his current work, and how the PGDIM has actually helped him on his journey. Kagiso, are you there? Okay. Let's just, I think while we wait for Kagiso, I'm just going to invite Stanton back into the discussion. Stanton, are you there? Oh, Kagiso, there's Kagiso. Hey, Kagiso.
Hi. Apologies, everyone.
No problem. Welcome to this information session.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and welcome to everyone that's on the session. Really great to be here and share past experiences and some key insights. And thanks to Dr. Kobas for touching on what Milpark is trying to do, help people spread their wings and stuff like that. So I think you gave a brief breakdown of where I come from. Maybe just to introduce myself, I'm Kagiso. I currently work at ABSA. I've been with Milpark for many years. Recently completed my NQF8, my PGDIP in investment management. It was really a tough journey, especially doing it while you're working. So it's a bit of a challenge to keep that balance. But I know that we try and push, and I know there's a couple of students that are looking to do it. My words is, please don't think too much about it. Go into it, and it's something that's really gonna open up doors for you. But yeah, Jamela, we can have a conversation.
Yes, thanks, Kagiso. I guess what I hear from you is that they should just do it. Just do it. Don't think too much about it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, thanks, Kagiso. I just want to kind of pick your brain around why you chose Milpark Business School for your studies, because I see you did your BCom at Milpark, and then you went on to do the PGDIM. What was your main reason or motivation for choosing Milpark Business School?
Yeah. So there's a couple of reasons, right? The first thing is Milpark is really widely recognized, and I mean, it's locally and internationally. And I think the second main reason is that they specialize. So and I think in life we have, two categories of people that are generalists and specialists. So it also depends what you'd like to do. And I mean, obviously lecturers as well, looking at backgrounds and everything like that. But to answer your question, it was really a variety of things, but one being the specialty of a piece where I knew that, I have a huge passion for investments. So, and I understood that choosing Milpark would sort of pave that way. The qualifications that they offer were in line with what I wanted to do. And I mean, they've got a really strong, how do I say this, like relationship with the banking or finance industry, and they sort of come out top. So they recognized by the banks and stuff. So it was also a good, route to take, to study with Milpark based on what the banking wants and stuff like that. So I think that's one of the key reasons I chose it. It's mainly because they're specialized and the qualifications are really recognized, especially if you're looking to study abroad or at different institutions here.
Thanks for that. And I think talking about specialization, we can, talk about the program, the PGDIM. Just it gives us a bit of an idea of what you mean by, it's a specialized qualification, or that Milpark offers specialized qualifications focusing on the PGDIM.
Yeah. And maybe just before you also move on to the next question, it's very important to understand, what this qualification does. And I think, which I'll also cover, and, as we move forward. But, it's interesting to understand how things make sense now. For example, I'll touch on a few modules like your financial reporting and corporate finance, econometrics, which you guys call economics and stats. Things start making sense when you sit down and listen to the news or read a bulletin or listen to the budget speech or, checking how the market is doing. It starts making sense why the rand is depreciating and stuff like that. So that whole insight you get from the modules helps you in the outside world to understand what's actually happening. So it's a very interesting and intense course, but it is worth doing. And like I said, it opens up doors. It gives you a whole wide range of skills. So it's a very interesting thing to do. Yeah.
Thanks, Kagiso. I see we have questions here. We're just going to pause and look at some of the questions. There's a question around, is the PGDIM, the PGDIM at Milpark, does Milpark Business School help with enrollment of CFA? Or maybe provide any form of help with regards to the successful completion of those exams? So very quickly, no, we are not affiliated with CFA. We do not help students to prepare for the CFA charter. What we do is we do offer curriculum that is relevant, it is current, and it's very similar to what is being offered in other business schools and also in the CFA sort of curriculum or exams.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on that, maybe, Kagiso, maybe your ambitions to be a CFA? What do you think about that?
Yes, 100%. And I think a few of my friends and peers know that I'm also on that route as soon as I complete my master's. What I wanted to say to that student that asked the question, very interesting question. What I want to say, though, is my input is this qualification is, for lack of a better word, it's purely CFA. So it does build that solid foundation for you to, merge into the CFA stream. Obviously, the structure is slightly different, but it's really CFA level 2 and 1, 2, and 3 combined, if I can call it that. So it really does pave that way. So it's a nice stepping stone to completing the CFA certification. So it's a really great foundation that it builds for one. Yeah.
Thanks, Kagiso. What would be your advice to anyone considering doing the PGDIM?
First thing is, it's a great thing to do, especially for people that have passion for investments, finance, the economy. It's not really, and one thing I want to mention is that the PGDIP in investment management, it's not focusing only on investments. I mean, personally, you learn things like running a regression. And I think my advice would be for people that are also considering taking their studies to the next level, like doing your master's. I mean, it's coming in handy now. And you touched on that, Jamela, when we look at the methodologies, especially when you decide, I mean, there's many students that prefer to do a quant study. And once you get to that space where you're doing your master's or your PhD and you need to do a quant, it's important that you understand how to run regressions and stuff like that. So my advice would be definitely please go for it, especially if you want to diversify your profile. Maybe some of the guys have done a banking qualification, but you want to have a mix on your portfolio. So it's really ideal to do this qualification, because one thing I've realized is the investment world is evolving quite drastically. So you coming in with this experience, you technically a financial analyst / investment specialist. So it really does create that, wide range of profiles in your portfolio, and it helps.
Yeah.
And I think it makes you more marketable. So my advice would be, yes, please go for it, because it really does open up doors for you. Yeah.
I like what you're saying. And I think for me, just to add to that, what I see is that the job market is evolving as well.
Yes.
So what we see is that people are not training for specific careers, but they are looking to apply themselves differently in the same role or in a new role, so that's what we're seeing more and more. And I really like how you're saying it's quite a diverse kind of program. It can fit into diverse settings.
Yes.
But the really important thing is that people learn these relevant practical skills.
Yes. And maybe just one last thing before we move on is that, certifications are great, right? And especially, and I'm talking to guys that are also in the corporate space that are working and guys that are looking to work. We might have full-time students. One thing that I want to mention is this is obviously NQF driven qualification, and employers take high recognition of that. So it's important as long as you study, yes, that's perfect. You do your CFA and certifications, that's perfect. But always keep it at the back of your mind that NQF accredited qualifications are really, really recognized, and employers take that really serious. So that's just one piece of advice to the guys that are on the call, that, it's something. My advice is, please, whatever you decide, can be banking, can be investment management, whatever PhD you do, just drive that NQF accredited qualification. It really does open doors. Yeah.
Thanks, Kagiso. I see there's a question here for you. I'll just read the question. What role does Kagiso hold at ABSA, and what responsibilities does he have? How does the PGDIM help him with this?
Okay. Thanks for asking that question. That's a very, very interesting question. So I'll tell you first what I do and how this qualification helped me. So I do strategy and CVP for bank. So we use a lot of acronyms in the bank. That's customer value propositions and strategy as a whole. What this qualification did, I'll tell you first, when I moved from private bank, joining the wealth, investment management and insurance space, that's one thing that moved me a level up, or maybe rather that got me a promotion. One of the items that got me a promotion is that the recruiter or my boss saw that I'm pursuing this qualification, and he saw that it's geared towards, our business unit and what we're trying to do. And it really did help me get that promotion. So how this has helped me is I do a lot of propositions for the investments team. I do it across bank. So how this comes in handy is especially looking at things like your corporate finance, alternative investments, equities. You really understand when you're having that conversations with fund managers or investment specialists. I mean, I also had friends which were in the same class that are wealth managers. It comes in very handy for you to be able to have meaningful conversations with customers. In my space personally, when I design propositions, I already know what's happening in the real world, and I already know how customers feel, obviously based on my frontline experience being a banker as well. So it really does bring in that key skill around analytics. I have very strong analytical skills now after I did this qualification, very, very strong advisory skills, extremely strong interpretation skills. So it comes in, and that's just to mention a few. So it really does help you. And especially when you're reading maybe your company's financials and you're trying to understand what route they're taking, where's the company moving, it helps you to be able to analyze and interpret those. So yeah, it's coming in handy in a lot of aspects in what I do. So yeah, it's just to mention a few. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Kagiso. Just one last question before we hand over to Stanton. Tell us about the support structures at Milpark Business School, and very quickly how that assisted you with being successful in your studies.
Yeah. I really want to mention that the first thing I need to mention is lecturers at Milpark are very experienced and they've got that in-depth knowledge of the real world and the module. Excuse me. So what I did is, first thing is I created those solid relationships with the lecturers, which is important for the students as well, to keep the lecturers close. One thing I can tell you is once you're studying and working, it's the most difficult thing to do. I mean, you're stuck on your own, you're sitting at home, you want to ask this question, but there's no one to ask. And then it's late at night, the lecturer, although there's a portal, but, but I think that was the first thing I did. And then I created relationships with the students, just to have that support structure. I mean, I lecture in my spare time, I tutor, but as much as I do that, I made sure that I keep those relationships with the students because they also help you in times of need. And then obviously my family and friends and the previous lecturers just for, guidance and stuff like that. So I feel lecturers at Milpark are really, really supportive. I had a few hiccups back then, but we managed to resolve. And I strongly encourage the students to stay very closely with you guys and, ask there's no stupid question, like ask questions as you need to ask. So I think most important thing is to create that structure. Obviously there's a lot to do, but just make sure that you keep the lecturers close. You ask them as many questions as you need, and then have that network, build that network with the other students. That's the best thing. That's what helped me become successful in this qualification.
Thank you so much, Kagiso. Just before we hand over to Stanton, there's one last question here. Is the PGDIM a DLO courses? Are classes offered? Yes, it's definitely a DLO course. We do have online live sessions once or twice through the term of the course, which is usually 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the course, but it is a DLO course. Okay, thanks so much, Kagiso. We will come back to you. We might come back to you depending on how it goes with Stanton. Stanton, over to you. Thanks, Kagiso.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to Kagiso and Jamela. I must say, even though I've been with Milpark for quite a few years, I've learned a lot of new things by listening to both Kagiso and Jamela. So thank you for that. Before I start with my segment, I just would like to say good morning to all of you. I know I'm coming in at the tail end, so good morning to you. And my name is Stanton Lesch, and I'm a lecturer on the Postgraduate Diploma in Banking. It's a very unique qualification. It's a niche qualification. And in South Africa, this is the only course at this level, at an NQF 8 level, that focuses and is specific and specializes on banking. And whilst it is a specialist course, there are also broad-based skills that you can acquire while on this course. I'm just going to mention a few of the subjects that you will do, and you will see it also ties it with what Dr. Kobe said earlier with the ethics, because in banking and in financial services, ethics underpins everything that we do, because ethics will feed through to the sustainability of the bank or the sustainability of the financial service institution. So some of the courses that you will be exposed to while doing the postgraduate diploma in banking is your business ethics and corporate governance, your social responsibility and environmental management, your bank risk management, which is a very technical course, your banking projects, which is a assignment-based course. And the nice thing about it is that it's not just an assignment, it's actually an assignment based on a real-world problem or real-world situation within your bank. So you will speak about your division, whether it be private banking, wealth management, corporate banking, investment banking. You will do a project, and out of this project, you would most probably be able to implement some of those lessons in your daily routine or in your business. And then we also have courses like financial services technology, which, as you've known with banking, especially the last few years, it's changed, it's evolved significantly. I think of myself, I've been using internet banking for about 20 years, but only in the last 6 months, and it's probably due to COVID, last 6 months to a year, have I been using digital banking and especially the apps. So those are all things that we will deal with in this course. And then obviously you also have electives like strategic management and your corporate finance and financial reporting. That's just a little bit of background into the course. But I've invited one of my top students, Brandon Acid, and I'm going to have just an informal chat with him so that you can just get insights into his journey as a banker and also into his journey as a student with Milpark. Good morning, Brandon.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Stanton.
Before I start my chat with Brandon, let me just give you some background. So Brandon Acid has been involved in banking for the better part of 30 years. He's been mostly in retail banking, but he's also worked in commercial banking. His current position is that he's head of external sales, local markets at FNB. It's a mouthful, and maybe he can elaborate on that a little bit later. He's worked at both Standard Bank and FNB, not at the bank that I've worked at before, ABSA. I'm not sure why he chose those two. But Brandon has done all his banking qualifications through Milpark. I believe there's a reason for that. But he's also done additional studies. He's done a management development program through UNISA. He's also done an accelerated development program through UCT. And so he's both why I'm giving you that detail is that you can see he's strong academically, and given his 30 years experience, he's also strong from a professional perspective. Brandon, let's start off with our informal chat and basically just give us a brief overview of your journey in banking and how banking has evolved over that time. I know it's 30 years, so don't go into too much detail. We're obviously limited for time, but just a brief insight into your journey in banking.
Thanks, Stanton. Yes, morning, everyone. So yes, I mean, I've had 30 years and my career started very much in the branch banking space with Standard Bank, and obviously progressed through there. But I've spent time both in branch banking, but also a lot of time in commercial and business banking, exposure to that, which was more your portfolio management stuff, also in your premium banking. And then some time in product house, what we call product house at FNB, which is really one of the segments, and now heading up the external sales team. So basically what that is really, it's the team within FNB that goes out and proactively hunts market share. So we have a national footprint with that, and that's really the business unit that I'm heading up at this point in time.
That's good. That's good. And Brandon, if after 30 years, if you could choose again, would you choose banking, and why?
For sure, Stanton. I mean, banking, when I first started off, it was a temporary thing, just until I found something else. And then 30 years later, here I am. And I think a lot of people have that. But for me, I wouldn't change a thing. I think, if I look at banking, it is such a diverse environment. And I mean, it's just become more and more diverse over the years. If you look at it now, there's just such a massive opportunity to move in different ways. I mean, if you look at it, you've got retail, you've got commercial, investment banking, merchant banking, offshore. There's IT opportunities, there's product development, there's infrastructure. I mean, we're even moving in to the telecom space in our world at the moment. And there's just opportunity for so much. I mean, if I look at one of the big recruitment areas in our space at this point in time is for engineers, because we're looking at process development and so forth. So I wouldn't change a thing. I think there is something for everybody within banking, and it's not just the bank as we knew it many years ago. It is just an extremely diverse career opportunity, and it's got a place in society that is extremely entrenched in society and effective. So I think it's really a great place to be.
Yeah, it's true, Brandon. And what you've basically said is just amazing how banking has evolved. If you asked me about a bank 20 years ago, I'd have tell you about the teller, I'd have told you about the customer service agent, I'd have told you about the sales consultant. But today, like you say, we're talking about data scientists, data engineers, industrial engineers are actually being employed within the bank so that they can optimize processes and even optimize how you use the app. So, although banking is a niche qualification, within those niche, there's such a lot of things that you can do.
Correct.
And you've seen, you must have seen most recently that the lines between banks and non-bank financial institutions, those have actually blurred, and you could see it with the acquisition that Standard Bank is now going to acquire 100% of its partner company Liberty, which is a insurer. So you can see the lines are blurred there. And then also there was another transaction earlier this year where Sanlam Investment Holdings actually bought out Absa's investment business. So yes, it's banking, it's specialist, it's niche, which is awesome. But within those niche, there's such a lot of opportunities for you to express yourself. And my journey in banking has actually been quite strange. And obviously, if I had it over, I would have done it differently. I started at the South African Reserve Bank, so as a central banker. And then I went to Sanlam as an investment consultant, basically. And then I went to Absa as a private banker and a wealth manager. And only about 3 years ago did I find my niche at Milpark in the School of Investments and Banking, where this qualification was actually. And if I knew those years, what I know now, you actually start with the postgraduate diploma in banking, either before you go into banking or while you're in banking. Because obviously you learn a lot of skills and a lot of tools which you can use there, and it's action learning. I'm just going to check. I think here's a question specifically before we move on to the next few questions. Okay, no, that is an IM question. Okay, Brandon. So obviously you've successfully completed your postgraduate diploma in banking, and I think you've got your completion notice in earlier this month.
Yes.
But you are full-time employed as well, and most of our students are full-time employed. So my question to you is, what did you put in place to ensure your success both at work and while you're studying? Because obviously it does not just happen automatically. There must have been some planning and some sacrifices that needed to be made. And maybe some of those best practices that you put in place could assist some of the people that are listening to us at the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure, Stanton. So I think, a support structure is extremely important. And I think this is a major part of the planning in terms of going into this, because, it's an awesome qualification to have, but I think everyone needs to understand there's a lot of work involved. And to get the maximum benefit out of this course, you need to be able to throw everything at it. So part of the support structures that I put in place, firstly, was to sit down with my family and say to them, listen, there is going to be a sacrifice, because from a time perspective, this does take up a lot of time. And it was just around, getting the family's buy-in in terms of them understanding why this needed to be done, and around, what the sacrifices would be. So getting that buy-in. Also then from a work perspective, so, you don't want it to impact too much on your work life, on the work environment, but it's just around making your direct line managers aware in terms of that you are going to be busy with this. So there are going to be times when you're writing exams, and there may be times when, you might need to take time to work on certain things. So it's around being able to have that support from your line management, and also your support structures in terms of your team, being able to delegate tasks from time to time to team members for them to take over, to try and alleviate some of the pressure. But I think also just, in terms of preparing yourself, I think it's important for you to understand what is it that you want to get out of this course? It's got to be more than just wanting to have the NQF8 qualification, because the amount of time and work this takes, you've got to be passionate about it. You've got to be deeply committed to this qualification. So time management is going to be critical. Planning and sticking to that plan is critical. And I found that worked for me, is giving yourself plenty of time to get through things and so forth. Set clear goals for yourself. And yeah, just be prepared to put in a lot of extra time, late nights, weekends, but what you put in is what you get out.
Awesome. Before I just comment on what you said, Brandon, I just would like to encourage everybody that's in attendance today just to answer or respond to the feedback form. Brandon, what you said is how you prepared for this course is so crucial, and I think I just want to emphasize it because students need to take this into account. Because you've got different sets of families. You've got your own family, which is at home, which you need to consult. You need to speak to them and say, listen, I'm going on this postgraduate diploma in banking journey. It's going to mean that I'm going to be incredibly busy. So we need to work out some trade-offs in terms of chores and the like, and support in terms of your support system motivating and so forth. But you also have a work family. And the work family is two-sided. Firstly, you need to inform your superior, so that he or she knows that at certain times of the years, Brandon or Stanton is going to be going to have to do exams and assignments and so forth. So we need to see how the team can support him. And secondly, your team, your colleagues, because they're also part of your journey, because they need to sometimes pick up the slack. And obviously, in those gaps where there's maybe not an assignment or there's not an exam, then you can pick up their slack as well. So it's not an individual journey. It is definitely a joint journey. Your own blood family and obviously your banking family. Then Brandon, one thing also where you said about the sacrifices and the structure and the discipline. I remember from my leadership studies, there was always a saying that if you want a culture of high performance, you first need a culture of discipline. And those time management, when you set out 2 hours on Sunday morning, 5 till 7, you need to be Sunday morning, 5 till 7, you need to be with your books. If you set it out on a specific weekend and there's parties, I always joke with my students to always say is, when you are a student, you have study weekends and you also don't have holidays, you have study holidays. Once the studies are done, then you can go back to doing all these funny things. And for me, even, and I could see recently with my wife's studies, she always used to complain about the sacrifices. But once she was completed the qualification, within the first 6 months, she said, no, I need to do something again. I need to. So this is a continuous journey. And I'd like to just commend you on making those sacrifices. And your results obviously speak for itself. Then Brandon, obviously, so that was that support. What support did you get from Milpark? And obviously, as I told you before, your answer needs to be as authentic as possible. We're not trying to massage the feedback. What type of support did Milpark provide? And did it aid your journey?
Look, Stanton, yes, thanks. And I mean, I will be honest, but I think, my record of where most of my qualifications come from, being Milpark, speak for itself. I think, from a support perspective, with most of the qualifications I've done have really been good. But I think with the postgrad, it really was, for me, it was exactly what I needed. The program managers' lectures were available. If it's not online, I just had to drop an email, and within hours I had a response. I think what really was nice is, when you're engaging with a lecturer or even the program managers, a lot of them had relevant experience to the topics that we were busy with. And I think that was key for me, in terms of that they could actually relate to the topic in terms of their past experience. And provide guidance around that. And I think with some of the subjects, you need lecturers that have that kind of past experience, that they can kind of give you guidance and information around. So things like the research project that we did, the structure of that research project, what to look at, how to approach it, especially with industry-specific stuff, really came in handy. But yeah, even the course managers, if I had a question around something not course or topic related, it was more around the course, the guys were very quick. So for me, being remote, it was not a problem. It was the guys were actually very, very strongly available and quickly available.
Thank you for that feedback, Brandon. And I can assure you, it is always our intent on our postgraduate diplomas, be it banking, investment management, public administration, or business management and administration. It's always our intent to ensure that our assignments and our exams are practical and real, because we need to ensure that education is only valuable if you can translate it into action. So can the things that we are doing in the assignment and exam, can you actually translate it in your workplace? So that's why if you look, for example, what we've gone through these last 2 years, or a little bit more than 2 years, with a global pandemic, COVID, obviously we would do assignments. What has the impact of COVID been on banking in general, globally, locally? And then for your business unit, whether it is private banking, whether it is commercial property finance, whether it is asset management, how has it influenced your business? So thank you for that feedback. And yes, we always try to support our students as much as possible, because you must remember that you're also part of our assets. We are only exist because of our students, and so we need to make ourselves as relevant as possible. And I'm going to ask you another quick question, and that is two more quick questions. Well, let's just get to the next one. I think you've seen, even before COVID, but especially in COVID, you could see that the digital capabilities of banks have just astounded me. So much so that I'm not sure if you've done some reading yet, but digital or digitalization today is no longer seen as a competitive differentiator. It's now seen as mandatory. And in strategic management, we call that a threshold capability. So that is a basic capability that you need to have in place if you want to compete in banking or in financial services. Have you got any comment on that? How have you seen, especially if you look at some of the new players?
No, I do. And I think, as you say, it's no longer if, but it's how solid are the banks with their digital offerings. And, I think anybody without a digital offering is kind of already dead and by the wayside. So I think especially if we look at COVID as an example, the first thing that happened when we went into lockdown was, how did the banks reach out to their customers and enable their customers? And the banks that didn't have a proper digital footprint struggled with that. Yeah. If you look at being able to offer our clients COVID relief or payment holidays, or just being able to communicate and engage and empower our clients to be able to bank remotely, the digital footprint was key to that. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's how do we move that forward? And if you look at the apps of the banks today, and also the fintechs, you just look at what is becoming more and more possible on these platforms. That it's unbelievable how fast we are progressing with regards to this digital banking journey. And I think also, if you look at the players that are coming into that market, and one of the topics we covered in the postgrad was fintech and the impact on the financial services industry, and how do banks compete with that, either compete with or work with. And I think that for me is a critical journey in terms of, your fintechs are often a lot more agile, especially with your digital platform. So it's how do the banks align and work with these guys to kind of take it forward into the future, because it is a critical part of the future.
Definitely. I'm going to make a statement. I'll ask my last question, and then we're going to basically just allow the last 10 minutes for questions from the audience. The statement that I'd like to make is in terms of the postgraduate diploma in banking, there's two things that I've noticed, or two feedbacks that I got from my students. First, the reason they did it is for upward career mobility. And for those that were already at executive levels, because we also have students at executive levels in their banks, those students told us that their goal was not upward career mobility, but they just wanted to be able to talk the talk. And if you know what talk the talk means, is that when they speak to the executive colleagues, they wanted to be comfortable with the terms being used, with the concepts being used, so that obviously they are not seen as incompetent, for example. So that's the statement I want to make. So it's upward career mobility, and then obviously at your level that you're at, you want to be fluent in terms of the talk. Thank you to Lani. I saw that comment. I'll ask our IT team just to check why you can't open the feedback form. The last question, Brandon, before we obviously open up to the audience is, in business, they always say you should never waste a good crisis. And in my terms, this COVID, lockdown, global pandemic, local pandemic, it was a good crisis. What are the lessons that we can learn out of this pandemic that we can obviously take forward? Because I'm sure you've seen, if you look at the financials of the banks, that first year, or say 2020, it was tough. But even if you look at the 2021 figures coming out, the banks are starting to recover, not yet at 2019 levels, but they're getting there. You can see it's like about a year away or so. So obviously, for me, intuitively, I would say there were lessons that we've learned out of this crisis that we can implement and that will stand us in good stead going forward. And you've mentioned some earlier where you mentioned about the interventions for the customers that the banks brought. But are there any other lessons, or you want to emphasize those lessons?
Yeah, so look, for me, I mean, talking about a good crisis, I think what this course did so well for me is it was very quick to pivot to picking up on because I mean, I started the course pretty much at the start of the pandemic. And a lot of that was incorporated into the course. And I mean, my business unit was very heavily affected by it because we are a channel that goes out and kind of is in the market. So, being hit by a lockdown and kind of being hamstrung by that was very pertinent to us. So, when we started with this course, questions like, there was a lot of focus on COVID and the impact it was having on economies, financial systems, on society as a whole. And it really forced me to research and introspect in terms of what is the actual impact this is having on both our country and internationally, and what are the different responses that are taking place. And just by having to research and look into those different responses, it helped me to formulate a plan for my business unit and kind of say, okay, so what I thought might work is not going to work, but also to critically expand on my exposure to what would work. So that was real-time assistance in terms of while I was learning, I was putting things into practice. So that really helped. And then just really the impact on my day-to-day career, it provided me with an opportunity to really expand on my level of thinking. So, I've been exposed to a lot of different things in banking, but it provided me with an opportunity to really interrogate and research and understand various topics that I'm not necessarily exposed to on a daily basis. A lot of the stuff challenged me because there were topics I knew nothing about. So even before I could start to answer questions, I had to spend days just researching these topics before I could even begin to try and understand and answer a question. And on stuff I knew, it just gave me a fresh perspective on maybe looking at things very differently in terms of what my preconceived ideas were. So, for me, it really just was a course that was real time and also expanded my thinking.
Awesome. One thing about studying and about continuous learning is you can never be closed-minded. You always have to be open-minded because there's so many different views that you need to channel in, and you need to synthesize that, package it, and then obviously execute it in your business or in your life. Brandon, thank you for the feedback today. I think I've learned something, and I'm sure some of the people that tuned in have learned something. And I'd just like to now open the floor, for lack of a better word. Any questions, you're more than welcome to ask us. We've got about 6 minutes left, but we can obviously add a few minutes if need be. But the floor is open. So whether you have questions on the postgraduate diploma in banking or investment management, the floor is open and we will answer to the best of our abilities. Thank you for your time, and thank you in advance for your questions. I see there's a few more people that are struggling with the feedback form. Oh, let me just see if I click on the feedback form.
I see there was a question here on the cost structure for the PGDIM. I'm not sure who asked that question, but can I just ask that maybe you provide us with your contact details? I think there is a feedback form, and then maybe you can just get in touch with us after the webinar and we can take the discussion forward.
Sure, makes sense, yeah. Let's give it another minute, and then
Yeah.
oh, Neo is just asking, Mokatle, I hope I've got it correct. Are this postgraduate diploma starting in 2022? Neo, these are existing courses, so it has been in operation for years, and it's obviously offered every year. So definitely in 2022 it will be available, both courses, but it's not new courses. It's existing courses that have been available and that are starting to be even more popular. I think one of the lessons that people also learned out of COVID is that nobody is indispensable in the workplace. So you need to acquire new skills so that you can become indispensable. So, and that's why these courses are going to become much more popular going forward, because you need that edge in the workplace. Every inch you can get, you must take it.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Stanton. And it's a full year course. So we do start in January, we end in December. So in Feb, we're starting with block 1. We have 4 blocks. So if you are interested and you want to register, this is the time. Get back to us, and let's meet with you in the new year.
And obviously, although the minimum time that you can do it in is a year, you can decide to do it over a little bit longer, 2 years, even 3 years, depending on your commitments, because each one of our situations are unique. Somebody that has no kids, for example, versus somebody that has 3 kids, they've got different demands on their time. So sometimes somebody will say, I can do this course, but I can only do it over 2 years. It's not the end of the world. We will accommodate you. The courses are quite flexible, and the nice thing is the platform is a distance learning online platform, so it's quite flexible. It's flexible.
Yeah, I see there are 2 new questions there. The first one, how well recognized is the postgraduate diploma in the financial industry? I don't know if maybe one of our panel, our guests, Brandon, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very well recognized. I think within our institution, within FNB, the course is very well recognized, and the guys definitely recommend it within our institution. So yeah, it's very well recognized.
Yeah, no, definitely. Brandon's right, definitely. To the person that asked the question, and one thing that's really nice about these qualifications is it doesn't only open doors in banking, but in the whole financial services as a whole. And it's actually even crazy how you get recognition abroad. So you'll even get, close recognition abroad for this qualification.
Yeah. Okay. Then we have another question. I am doing banking and investment. Is the PGD in that, or do I have to choose between the two? Oh, isn't that the golden question? If you're the kind of person who can't choose, you like to apply yourself very broadly. I'm afraid here you have to make a choice, either the banking PGD IM or the banking PGD or the PGD in IM in investment management. But I think Stanton, do you want to add something?
I differ with Jamela. You first need to do the postgraduate diploma in banking, and once that's done, you do the postgraduate diploma in investment management, or vice versa. I mean, it's the knowledge you gain. It's something that you can still use, whether you're in banking, in insurance, investment management, you can definitely apply it both ways. So do both. Don't just do one.
Okay. All right. Now, I think the last question is related to CFA. We did discuss this earlier, and Kagiso also did give that feedback in terms of we don't prepare you for CFA in this program, but our curriculum and our content is benchmarked at, or we look at the CFA curriculum, the CFA level 2 curriculum in particular. So although we're not preparing you for that, most people actually, and Kagiso is the one who gave us that feedback, that once you've done this qualification, you are more confident in doing the CFA, and you're a bit better prepared, not by us, to do the CFA. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. I think with that, maybe we can just close the meeting. And just to emphasize, if you would like to chat to us more, you can email us through, give us feedback, or you can reach out to our marketing department and they will put you in touch with myself and Stanton, and we can take the conversation forward. Thank you so much to Kagiso and Brandon for your time and sharing all your insights. Thanks, Stanton. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I'd also just like to thank Brandon and Kagiso, and then obviously everybody that attended. Thank you for your time. Time is precious, so thank you for attending, and I hope to see you in the new year. Maybe not January, but February.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, and all the best to the students.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah. Just bye.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. See you guys.